Exactly 100 years ago to this date, there's a moment in history, a moment of compassion, of common sense, of humanity that scared the utter crap out of every politician, banker, and general around the world. Now, 1914, the British and French were fighting against the Germans in World War I. Now, every government on both sides of the fighting promised the soldiers that the war would be over by Christmas and that they would be able to be with their families. Of course, the soldiers knew that that was an absolute lie. The two sides were at a stalemate. They had to dig into the ground to hide from each other. Sniper fire and machine gun took the life of anyone who would dare to put their head above ground. The two sides were so close to each other they could hear everything and every conversation. The small piece of land that divided the two was filled and riddled with dead bodies, decaying and rotting, destroyed to the point where you couldn't even recognize what side they were fighting on. Now, on Christmas Day, the Germans decided to turn on their lights in their trench. The British were getting ready because they thought the Germans were advancing. They had their machine guns, they had their rifles, they had their guns and their weapons ready. But instead of hearing gunfire, they heard Christmas carols by the Germans. The British, hearing this, they started clapping. Then the British decided to sing their own Christmas carols. And then the Germans started clapping. And then one German soldier decided to share his food, share his ration, the little food that he had in that moment, in that horrible condition, and he decided to throw it over to the British side. And the British did the same. And because of that human curiosity, because of that exploration of what could be possible, there was one brave, amazing human being, Captain Charles Buffalo Bill Stockwell, on the British side, decided to come out of his trench, knowing that at any time a bullet could take his life, knowing that there were snipers trained and ready to shoot anything that moved, anything that went above ground. Imagine seeing so many of your brothers die right in front of you, and you can't even collect their bodies, and you have to be next to their rotting corpses. The people, your friends, your brothers, are all dead right in front of you. And you decide to make that choice, that one decision, because of human curiosity, because of that exploration, to just walk onto the battlefield. Now, when Captain Charles Buffalo Bill Stockwell decided to walk on that battlefield, the Germans screamed, "Don't shoot! We don't want to fight." And then Captain Buffalo Bill Stockwell decided to say, "We don't have to." And he walked onto no man's land in the middle of what was virtually hell. A German officer named Kraus decided to walk out as well, to risk his life, to meet this captain. And the two men met, and they started talking to each other. And because the soldiers in the trench saw this, they saw one man and then a second man. It turned into a third and a fourth, and then it turned into thousands of people coming out without weapons drawn at each other and to talk to each other. Now, when the two sides met, it was Christmas time, so they gave each other what they had. The Germans gave sausage and chocolate, and the British gave whiskey and jam. And they started to talk to each other, and they started to help each other. Barbers on each side decided to cut each other's hair. There was a football made, and people decided to play soccer against each other, against the British and the German side. There was a juggler on the German side that entertained everyone. They took a moment where they took all the bodies and decided to give them a proper burial. And because some of the bodies couldn't be recognized, because some of the bodies were so destroyed and people couldn't even understand what side they were on, they decided to bury them next to each other. In that moment, that one brave human being, that individual, made people realize that we have a lot more in common than we actually know, and that we don't have to just be killing each other and fighting each other because someone else says. It was a moment that was widely reported on all throughout the world, but of course historians never found it important to talk about, and they never put it in the history books until there was a BBC documentary in 1981 called Peace in No Man's Land, where they took the letters of these soldiers and documented and did a full presentation of what exactly happened on that one amazing, magical day where the killing stopped. Now, of course, the top chain of command, the top generals and politicians found out about this. And of course, they did everything in their power to make sure that this would never happen again. They promised punishment on every soldier that participated, but soon found out that it wasn't just one location, but 30 locations where this happened. They set up new rules and regulations and laws prohibiting friendly behavior with the enemy, and they threatened court-martial to anyone who would dare break this law, anyone who would dare to be human. And of course, the next year, December 25th, 1915, they decided to increase the air raids and the air bombardments to make sure that no man could meet in the middle of that battlefield, because they were scared of people realizing how human we are, how connected we all are in this together, and how we don't need to be fighting against each other at every moment in time because someone else decided that we should. A very important lesson that we can learn from, especially in these times when we're being divided and conquered, when people are just highlighting differences, when people are just being disrespectful to any form of human life. Who will be the next Captain Charles Buffalo Bill Stockwell during these times? Will it be you?